Hello and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today on our Q2 Modern Solutions Program webcast. We have some really exciting stuff we want to share with you guys today. Today we'll be discussing a little bit about adding infrastructure to your managed services offering. And certainly anyone who today is offering services around user support and not offering support to your customers' infrastructure, certainly missing out. Really, we want to focus on capturing the entire IT spend. So we'll get to more of that in just a little bit here, but before we get started, a few housekeeping notes. My name is Nate Hatala. I am a Cloud Vendor Manager and Managed Services Sales Manager. Those of you that may have corresponded with me before, sometimes you'll see Practice Leader in my email signature. I always like to start explaining a little bit about what a Practice Leader is at D&H. So as I mentioned, I own both the vendor relationships and the sales management aspects, but I really like to say that my job is to help our partners, whether they're just starting their managed services journey or they've been on it for a while, launch, scale, or optimize their business, right? So I have a team of problem solvers, and that's what we love about kind of our role within the company. We're here to help you guys. And I am joined today by Nick Points, Vice President of Sales at CharTec. So Nick is a individual that we've known for a long time here at D&H, and some of you may have seen him speak on previous webcasts. I really love Nick. Nick, welcome, right? And one of the things we really love about Nick is not only helping you guys understand what to do, but very hands-on and good at explaining how to actually do that in your business. So before we get started here, just a couple quick notes. Certainly, this is part of our Modern Solutions program. Those of you that are unfamiliar with the Modern Solutions concept, really what we've endeavored to do here at D&H is bring kind of all the facets of a end user opportunity kind of under one umbrella here, right? So kind of in traditional distribution, to kind of capitalize on opportunity, you might have to go to one part of the organization to perhaps procure the hardware, another part of the organization to get the licensing, right? And another part of it for perhaps if you need professional services to help with the implementation or ongoing management. Here at D&H, kind of under our Modern Solutions business unit, we've certainly endeavored to kind of bring those things out of their individual silos and into one singular experience for our customers, right? So when you come to anyone on the business unit here, really what our desire is and our intent is to help you capitalize on all those aspects of that opportunity, make it easy to get a quote, speak the price, and also put you in touch with the right resources to make sure you're right sizing the solutions for your customer. Many of these solutions are today available in our D&H Cloud Marketplace, right? So if you're not currently enrolled in the D&H Marketplace, I implore you guys to reach out to us. We can help you get set up with credentials, and you can take a look at all the different solutions we have available there. Just wanted to take a quick moment here and acknowledge some of the great vendor sponsors that helped make this webcast today possible. Certainly without them, it would not be possible for us to perhaps deliver this degree of content to you guys, and really kind of they're stewards of a great partnership between D&H and everyone on this call. Nick, with that being said, I will bring you on here, right? So Nick Points, Vice President of Sales here at CharTec, as we mentioned. Nick, how are we doing today?
Man, Nate, hey, I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
Some good stuff, man. Looks like a lot of people on. This is kind of a great segue here, Nate. And again, thanks for having me back on here. Hopefully many of you guys we've seen before on some of these webcasts and some of the trainings out in the industry, maybe out at D&H HQ here. And like Nate mentioned, I'm Vice President of CharTec, as well as our own MSP called Arc Technology. And so like many of you guys watching right now, just like you, I'm wearing a lot of different hats. So it kind of depends on what day it is, what problems we're trying to solve in the channel business or at the MSP. And so if you guys have questions, and I'm sure you will, get them into the chat here, but also feel free at any point in time, and please connect with me. There's my email right there, as well as you can find me on LinkedIn, and I'm a resource for you, just like Nate and the team at D&H is. All right, we ready to get started then, Nate?
I'm excited. Let's do it, Nick.
All right. So it looks like I want you guys to think about, as we're joining a webinar to talk about infrastructure as a service, adding infrastructure into your managed services offering. So with that mindset, I want you to ask yourself, where are we going to put our focus moving forward? Because some of you guys, we saw a little poll question come up. Are we a transactional business today, break fix, just doing straight product sales, traditional VAR, or are we doing some recurring revenue as well? And depending on whatever camp you're in, if you want to continue with recurring revenue, then this is the webinar for you. This is the spot you need to be. If you just kind of want to see what it's about, maybe I want to stick with transactional sales, hopefully this webinar will change your mind, because that recurring revenue is what it has continued to build both of our companies and for many of you guys on here today. So we have to understand, where are we going to put our focus? Now, again, if you want recurring revenue, you're in the right place. But with that being said, not all recurring revenue is created equal. I mean, there's so many challenges in our industry and the channel right now with other vendors that are just wanting to pitch product and throwing pricing all over the map, and we should be charging it a rate of X amount per seat or per user per device. But we're failing to ask ourselves, how much money are we keeping? Sure, you can make margin on a particular product, but after we put time and effort and labor and support against that, how much money are we making? So as an example, many of you guys right now if I were to hand you a $10,000 a month, 3-year term agreement, you'd probably be like, yeah, this is awesome. Woo, thank you very much. But what if it cost you $12,000 a month to support it? That's a bad deal any way we want to look at it. So I want you to start thinking about, as we're going through here, what kind of recurring revenue are we going after? And then ultimately, at the end of the day, how much are we keeping? And that's what we need to solve, and how we're going to build our offering and our pricing structures. So if we're thinking about, how many offerings do we currently have? All right. And like I mentioned, guys, we have an MSP, 30 years in business, founded in 92. So we've made all of the transitions you can think of, from just building computers and selling them to, focusing more on kind of support once, the big box store started selling. Costco started even selling computers, right? So we had to kind of pivot our mindset and focus on what we could compete on, because it was no longer price, with the actual infrastructure. So we started doing, kind of break fix, right? Just like probably many of you guys started that way as well. Computer would break, hey, come in, we'd repair it, maybe sell you a new one. And, that was okay. I mean, we were very successful at doing that. And then we got a taste of, you can call it recurring revenue. We started doing retainers, we call them. And we had a block time and then a discounted labor rate after that. And it was kind of cool. It was hey, every month we would have some money in the bank, and then they would use it up and we'd get some more up front. So we kind of liked that idea of recurring revenue. And then 2006, 2007 happened, right? And we started, dabbling in remote monitoring tools, and we really started focusing on recurring revenue. As an MSP, we made the decision, this is what we want more of. And so we built up our sales team, and, we started selling all these different packages you can see on the screen. So we had the, we can do that offering. It was new. We were kind of figuring it out as we went, and we would sell. We had platinum, we had gold, silver, kind of like that good, better, best mentality. We did the, lead. As Nate likes to, we joke about it. We had plutonium. Any different offering we could make up in the sales process, we would, to close a deal. And at first glance, you would look at our recurring revenue, and it was a hockey stick, man. I think it was just growing month after month, quarter after quarter, year after year. But what we started realizing is we started having some problems that started restricting our profitability. It started impacting client satisfaction. Because I want you to think about it. There's having multiple different offerings, having multiple different flavors, variations of the service and what we provide to end clients. It's going to be very tough for you as an operational side, a support side, to keep our clients up and running. So we would have clients that, if the phone rang at 5:01, was my help desk going to answer it? were they going to charge an after hours rate, or was it included as part of one of the packages, the mini packages that we had out there floating in the ether? And again, it became tough. We weren't standardizing on networks, and so our operational support, it became tough to realize, keeping this client up and running. They would reach out. Maybe they had a Cisco ASA firewall out there. Well, that's not our standard firewall, but nonetheless, we would spend time and we would be supporting it. But the key there, we'd be spending more time than we needed to. We'd be researching because we weren't familiar with it, or we hadn't worked on it in 6 months prior. And so it started creating some frustrations as well. What about on-site support? Supporting these solutions. I mean, we would send people out and we would replace, a hard drive as an example in one of the workstations, or maybe in one of the servers. And then we get a call. You get a call from that client saying, hey, what's the deal, man? I got an invoice for a hard drive replacement. What's going on with that? I thought I opted into this special package, right, or whatever we sold them. I thought parts were included. And then you, salesperson or the business owner, you kind of start backpedaling. You would say, no, well, it wasn't included as part of the offering, at least not the parts for your existing equipment. And, we're going to have to charge you for it. And they're like, well, one, I don't want to pay for it because you didn't charge me last month. And then you're like, oh, great. And it just becomes some kind of a conflict. Most of the time, you probably eat it anyway because it's already been done. Try to keep that relationship going. And so it just becomes frustrating from a service standpoint. Talk about service getting upset with sales. This was a prime example of it. But then put on your sales hat for a second. If you have multiple different offerings, it's going to be very hard for you to be confident in your sales process, to be confident enough to deliver the right solution to the client, because you're like the Baskin Robbins, right, of IT, and you have 31 different flavors. Once that lack of confidence shows, and I promise you it will, your client is no longer confident either. When you're hesitating and be like, well, yeah, we can do that. We can definitely remove this and add that, and you can pay the lead price, and we'll give you all the platinum. You have a lack of confidence. And so think about that a little bit more from the client standpoint. The chances are that you're in this sales process, you're in this conversation, you're in this engagement because the person on the other end of the phone or the other end of the boardroom table has a problem they need you to solve. If they knew how to solve it themselves, they wouldn't be talking to you, right? So how do you think they feel when you present them that good, better, best mentality, these multiple different offerings? Like, hey, based on your budget, here's our platinum type service that includes everything. But if you don't have the budget for that, here's 2 other packages or 3 other packages to choose from. And then you ask them what works best for you. And you wonder why they don't make a decision. And they tell you, well, you know what, we're going to give it some thought and we'll get back to you. And really what happens is they're going to go home more confused than when they met with you. And they're going to try to find somebody smarter than they are to decipher the packages to help them make a decision. And I promise you what happens is that person knows a guy. And they're like, whoa, you didn't pick anything yet. You didn't sign anything, right? Because I've got a guy. Oh, these packages are crazy. I got a guy that can do it for way less. And they're like, oh, whoa, okay, cool. Let me meet them. And then you get stuck up in this follow-up mentality. So multiple offerings will present multiple challenges. Okay, so we need to think about this. We need to start standardizing on what we as the MSP know is going to work for our clients that we can support and we can support efficiently. Now, here's a high-level breakdown of our managed services offering. Okay, I'm going to just hit on it briefly, but I want you guys to start thinking about when you're building out your packages, you have to start thinking about what are we including in there. Now, the first part is we have what I call permissions to play. If you look at the screen here, this is our monitoring tool for the most part, right? This is whatever tool we have in our arsenal that allows us to do this. And we need it, don't get me wrong, we need it for a healthy network, right? To make sure that we can do the support we need to for our clients, but this is no longer what we sell on, right? This is no longer the shiny object. 2007, it was cool, but nowadays, if you don't have this, you shouldn't be coming to the table, okay? It would be like the same feeling you would get going to a car dealership and having the car salesman tell you how cool it is that this model has a steering wheel. You're gonna think, okay, what else you got? Let me guess, it has a brake pedal too? So here's our permission. This is like just the products we have, the bare minimum. We have our basic support that we're going to be doing. I mean, who doesn't do remote support, right? I mean, again, if you're not offering that, you need to be. It's important, but it's no longer what we're going to sell on, right? This is, again, just the permission to come to the table, to present to this end client. Fix computers when they break. I think we can all agree computers, they don't break like they used to, but if they do, we will go out and repair them, or we will replace them. Keep the networks administered, make sure Active Directory's in line, everybody doesn't have admin access, remote desktop sharing when needed, coming on site if we have to, and just have reasonable SLAs, a reasonable service level agreement in place to make sure that our clients are up, they're running, they're efficient. So again, these are some basic support parts. Now, something else in our industry that's shifting, and you saw a couple of the sponsors that Nate brought up here. Security is huge, guys. And there's some parts of security that are now becoming those permissions to play. Endpoint, right? Who doesn't do that, right? Anti-spam, that's built in, setting up proper network permissions. Dark web monitoring, 6 years ago, 5-6 years ago, it wasn't a thing. But now everybody's doing it, right? Or we should be. It's kind of that low-hanging fruit, just, yeah, it's included, right, as part of our service, something that we can talk about. What about these other ones down here? We have employee education and training, doing the fish threat testing. It's a great lead into an opportunity. It's a great addendum for an existing client to add more recurring revenue. It adds value to the client, helps solve the problems. The biggest vulnerabilities that end users, that end clients, that their networks really exposed. It's not the infrastructure, it's not our antivirus and firewalls, right? For the most part, it's people. So this again is becoming that permission to play, to educate their employees to be safe, to protect the business and protect themselves. Now, some other things that are coming up that are going to be a permission to play, but I'm kind of just asking the audience here, think about cyber liability insurance. What are we doing for that? Different than E&O, but carriers, insurance carriers are starting to require this for business insurance renewals. So what is our offering that we're going to be providing to our end clients to help them check those boxes? Same thing, 2FA, MFA, password managers. I wouldn't say they're permission to play yet, but they're quickly becoming one. So as we're again putting our packages together, we're thinking about what we're going to be doing for our clients. Make sure that we are considering these options, because it won't be long before they are just again going to be that permission to play. We need to be doing this for our clients. So now with that said, when we're meeting with a client, there's always a few alternatives that they are going to have in their minds. What are our competitors? Number one is going to be status quo. That's the biggest competitor we have. They do nothing. They stay the same way. The other one is they in their minds, they have thought of or will think of the opportunity to hire their own dedicated IT person. Depending on the size of their company, they're going to get to a potentially a size where that may, in their minds, start thinking like it could pencil out. So we have to get in front of that as part of our offering, right? We would get in front of an end client, an opportunity, and they say, yeah, think about hiring an IT company. You'd be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. An IT person. You'd say, whoa, don't need to do that. You can hire my company, right? Hire my team. We're way better than just one person. These services that you see in front of you, these are the services that we need to include as part of our offering to displace a dedicated IT professional, because an IT professional will be doing all of these services for an end client, and they'll be doing them on an unlimited basis. Consulting and engineering. Why would we want to be involved? They want to add video surveillance? Great. Let's research it. Let's find out what's going to work best for their needs and give them their options at the next board meeting. Get it budgeted in, and we can manage that entire project to make sure it stays on budget and on time, just like a dedicated IT professional will be doing. Auditing invoices annually, making sure we're getting what we're paying for. We're taking advantage of new technologies, new savings. Budgeting, road mapping. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but we have to start thinking about, if you do not have this or these services in your offering currently, you really need to look at that. especially if you're telling your end clients you don't need to hire an IT person, hire my company. But if we don't do the services an IT person would be doing, we're doing them a disservice, and we're leaving money on the table. Okay, we're limiting the areas in which we can really help a small business thrive, solve some problems for them. We're doing that with a lot of the services that we see here sitting in front of us. So for our MSP, as we were making all these transitional phases and we were including these building up our solutions and our packages, we started running into a challenge where, again, to be profitable on an agreement, especially when you're doing flat rate, all of our stuff is flat rate. And the only time that rate is going to change is if the end client adds something new. So to be profitable on there, we had to start standardizing our networks. We would come up with our set of workstations. If it's going to be, Lenovo as an example for the workstations or laptops, servers maybe HP, whatever your standards are, your switches, your firewalls. With your team, you build out and you understand what do we need to have to protect our clients, to support them, to keep them up and running, and what is our team proficient in? And you guys can standardize on that. So, and you think about your sales process, you guys have heard that performing a discovery, a business discovery, think of it like we're applying for life insurance, right? The company is not just going to take our word for it. Well, I guess depending on the level of insurance we're asking for, right? But most of the time, you're going to have to do like some kind of physical, do some blood work or whatever. They're not going to, take your word that you haven't been smoking the last 40 years, right? Same thing that we need to do when bringing on a new client. So these standards are huge. So we go in, we do the discovery, find out what doesn't meet our standards, and then we have to get those standards in place so we can efficiently support them. And so as we started going down this path, we kind of hit a fork in the road where the end clients loved it. They said, hold on here. I get a budget and I get to pay the same monthly rate, no matter how many times I call you, no matter how many times that your people have to show up on site to keep our that's great. I'll take 2. And then we have to be like, whoa, slow down a little bit, Sparky. In order to perform the services that we've been talking about, your network is in need of an investment. However many thousands of dollars, whatever the price was to get that network up to our standards, we'd put that in front of them. More often than not, they were okay with the monthly, but they just didn't have that bag of cash just sitting there to cut that check to us so we can bring in the network that we needed to perform the services. So we tried so I get it. Money's tight, but you promise that you'll budget next quarter to replace the servers and the workstations? And they were like, yeah, that sounds reasonable. We'll do that. And I'm like, pinky promise? And oh yeah, they pinky promise. But that next quarter would come by and you guys can guess at what happens. Oh, you're not going to believe this. I didn't have the budget. Oh, something happened. Can we push it out till next quarter? So you get into this vicious cycle where you're trying to perform flat rate, getting that recurring services in, but your profitability shot because you're working on an old network. So we started including it. We started including it as part of our service offering. It removed the barrier of entry. It removed that barrier of having to make 2 sales, right? The recurring, the agreement, and then the project. And it allowed us to quickly standardize our networks. It allowed us to land more clients, and it allowed our profitability numbers to be where we needed them to continue to grow and scale as an MSP. So now we had some challenges with this. So what we named on, and again, guys, phenomenal sponsors here, phenomenal products. Most of you probably already have them in your solution offering. If not, you guys just need to standardize on your offering. This is a great place to start. Talk to Nate, the team at D&H. They can help you out. But you guys got to start thinking about standardizing that network, okay? Standardizing the equipment, the software, everything that we're going to be doing to make sure our clients are up, running, and efficient. So our MSP, we bundled our services, right? Our offering down into 2 packages, okay? We have 1 solution and we have 2 offerings. And I'll explain, you'll see them here. We have a platinum or plastic, right? We call it platinum's like our our typical 98% of our clients are on the platinum package. Our plastic is the package we have when they legitimately do not need all of the services that we offer. More often than not, if it comes down to this, it is because they have an IT person on staff already. Now we're doing augmentation of services. We give them use of our ticketing system. We give them our remote tools, right? Access, screen share capabilities. They can escalate tickets back to us. We're kind of like the help desk for them, right? But we're working alongside an IT staff. This is not to be confused with, I hit them with the platinum, and when they get sticker shock, they're like, oh, we fall back to a plastic. We present the right solution up front to solve the needs that we identified during the sales process. Let that sit in for a second. What needs did we identify? And we're going to put them in the right solution to solve them. And we have tons of training guys in on the sales process and how, working through the different components of it. But at the end of the day, your offering needs to match the services that you're providing to solve the problems and needs that this end client had. Okay, so once this is standardized, you're going to kind of boil them down. Now the question always comes up: how the heck do we price this thing? Because again, depending on who you're listening to, what podcast, what trade show, what event you've been at, what webinar you've listened to, there's different ideas for how the heck we should be pricing. Now there's a couple of things, right? One, there's typical pricing challenges. One of them is if you do not start incorporating, or at least providing the option to incorporate the infrastructure into your managed services offering, you're back to making two sales. Making one, for some of you, you're like, it's hard enough. Then why do we have to make two? Right? I would rather make one than have to make two every time. Or you guys get into the, the mentality of, I got to break everything out, have everything line itemed out. I don't do that. Okay? Your services are your services. Your solution is your solution. You buy a car, you don't have it line itemed out for every single bolt and nut that is in the vehicle. What are you gonna like? You're gonna buy a car and say, I don't really need the driver door. No. The car is the solution. Okay, the individual components of it are almost irrelevant. The solution is going to be specifically there to solve the needs we identified. How we do it, if we present correctly, clients don't care. But you start getting into this commodity mode if you start line iteming everything out, and then they're going to be and here's a great light bulb that should be going off if your prospects are asking you, hey, can you remove this thing? What does it lower my rate to? Or man, we're kind of like the offering you put in front of us is like a Cadillac offering, but we're just a kind of a small, plain old Chevy company. Can you remove these pieces? What does it lower my rate to? If you're not breaking out your line items, then you're trying to sell them things they don't feel they need. You fail to articulate what problem you identified and how you're going to solve it. You're probably just feature selling, talking about all the great services that we can do and provide 24/7 support and around the clock and blah, 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 blah. But you know what? For a business that runs 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, they don't care about your 24/7 support. That doesn't mean we don't include it because we've standardized that as part of our service offering. I just don't talk about it. I'll just say we support you during your business hours. And then if they say, well, what if I have to work late or come in on a weekend? Then you just let them know, hey, we got you covered. They're like, oh, you golly, thanks. But they feel like you're trying to sell them something they don't need. And they're going to try to price shop. And again, most of the time, if they're wanting to line item things out, they feel there's something that you're talking about they don't need. Simple as that. The other part of it, the other mentality we have is, especially as we're transitioning, we're like, I'm going to go sell the project first. I'm going to get that, 60, 70, 80, 100 grand now. And then I'm going to come back for the recurring. I'm going to come back for the service, come back for the agreement. And it doesn't happen. You know why? They just cut you a check for 6 figures. They're like, I'm good. I can make sure I can get another 10 years out of this network. No problem. I'll call you if it breaks. And you guys are like, oh yeah, I've done that before. And the other one is, pricing user versus device. You need to be a minimum of $300 per user, or you need to price it out per device. People leave, guys, devices aren't used. They're going to be like, lower my price if that's all we're selling on. So I give one rate, one solution price to solve all the problems. Now they can divide it by how many computers they have. They can divide it by how many employees they have. I really don't care. But I'm not talking about, well, every person you have in the company is going to be X amount of dollars per this or per computer we take on. It's all part of a math problem. And then when they add later, it's an addendum. And I'll show you, we got some strategies for how we come up with that. But I don't like the price per component per widget. It just opens up areas later for conversations that we probably don't even need to have. Okay, you provide the right solution and you give the pricing for that solution to solve, again, the needs you identified for this small business. So I'm going to break down our pricing strategy. Now this is important, guys. Please do not get hung up on the numbers. Oh, I charge this amount a month or blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant, guys. I just want you guys to follow the strategy of how I'm developing our pricing, and then I'm going to show you how we deliver it in a presentation. And then I'm going to show you further how we get down to those individual pricing numbers. But this first part is the concept. Okay, so don't start blowing up Nate in the chat. Okay, just follow along. If you have questions, please put them in there. But just keep your mind open and just follow the concept that I'm gonna break down to you. So the first part, when I'm coming up with our pricing strategy, you need to look at what would you charge this client for your managed services. Average deal across the country is about $2,000 a month. You guys, again, don't get hung up. You're like, well, mine is $2,500. Well, mine's $5,500. Or mine's $1,200. Doesn't matter. Let's just say it's $2,000 a month for easy numbers. Now, there's another number I want to come up with as it relates to what I would charge for the services. And I call this number my reduced to ridiculous. I break it down to a price per work hour. So in this example, $2,000 a month, you would divide it by 172. That's your average work hours in a month, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. This comes out to $11.63 an hour. So probably much less than minimum wage in most of the states that are on here. Definitely lower than California. And the reason I do this is because when I go to present and when I go to finally give that pricing after my sales presentation, I want to put things in perspective. Business owners, managers, leaders in an organization make hiring and firing decisions all the time without having to get the board of directors approval, without having to get all the other leaders, all the other departments, having to call your silent partner, having to call your spouse. They make those hiring and firing decisions for 12, 14, 15, 18, 20, 25, $30 an hour employees all the time without even blinking an eye. So again, I'm putting things in perspective. In this case, if I'm charging $2,000 a month, really I'm getting a company for less than $12 an hour. Pretty good deal. Now, here's where we're gonna need to start thinking about the standardization component. So let's just say if I were to charge $2,000 a month to support this network, what do I need to get them up to my standards? So let's just say I have an investment that I need to make for the infrastructure, the computers, whatever, the firewall, software, whatever doesn't meet my standards, I'm putting it up front. And let's just say in this example, my MSP Arc Technology, I'm cutting a check to D&H for $10,000. Yeah, I self-finance, right? Our MSP, we do our own financing. So if you're doing, and I think Nate can talk about it later, but they have financing options for you as well. So you would just take that number they give you, mark it up, but it would still be that same concept, okay? But I self-finance, so I have a $10,000 investment, a check that I'm just stroking to pay D&H. I need to make a return on that money. So for me, I'm going to divide it by 12 months. I have a term agreement. My minimum agreement terms are 36 months. I'm starting to push things over to 60. So minimum term, 36 months. I want to make my money back, that $10,000, in let's just say 12 months. That's my desired ROI. So if that's the case, then I would need to add, right, 10,000 divided by 12 months is $834 a month. So now I'm going to add that to my services, which is going to bring me now to $2,834. Support and my services, which would increase my reduced to ridiculous to just about the California minimum wage, right? $16.48 an hour. And again, if you guys have questions, put them in there, and Nate, jump in if anyone has any particular questions. So here's the other side of this coin. So if I had an investment I had to make in my infrastructure, right, to get my all-in number, there is a chance that when we get through this, the end client just wants to own the network. Cash is not the problem for them. They want to have depreciating assets, whatever. They want some write-offs. They have money to spend at the end of the year, so they may want to stroke the check for that project. So we need to come up with a project price. If my cost, let's just easy numbers. If my cost was 10 grand, if I want to make 50% margin, then I would have to charge 20. Simple numbers. Again, don't get hung up on them. Just follow the concept. So if they want to own the network, then I need to have a secondary number in my back pocket already calculated, so I'm not having to go back and recalculate, figure it out, and I lose a sale because now I gave too much time. You have to be ready to close the day we present. So have the different options ready to go and already calculated. So I take the project price. So in this case, let's say it's 20 grand. I will divide it by my term, which is 36 months in this case, which comes up to $555.56. I'm then going to take that number and back it out of the monthly service amount with HAWS. So I will take $2,834. I will reduce it by $555, which gives me my amount for the support if they cut the check for the 20 grand, which would be $2,278, which is reduced to ridiculous now $13.25 an hour. Now you guys are sitting there now, then you guys calculate, and your wheels are starting to turn, and you're like, whoa, well, Nick, now I may get an extra $278 a month, because remember, we were going to charge $2,000 before to support them, but now we're making extra almost $300 a month, month after month after month, and they paid for the project up front. The way I'm doing the math like this with the project and I'm breaking it out over the term is because if you guys haven't caught on yet, when you're looking at these numbers, it looks like interest-free financing. So again, a lot of times when you put things in perspective like this, they're more opted to use your money and free up that capital investment for something else. But either way, if they want to own it, guys, that's not an objection. And it's just a math problem that you need to be prepared for. Okay. Delivering the price. Now that we have our pricing set, we have to be able to deliver. And again, I have courses, I have lessons, we have online training and stuff that'll walk you through our presentation from start to finish. This is just at the end of the presentation after we've already said everything we need to say. Okay. Eventually, they will ask you, okay, well, how much is it? And you're going to say, well, I'm glad you asked. It's not free. You're going to smile and then let them know the solution is going to come in two parts. The first part is going to be for all the services that we are going to perform for you. And this was I will make a reference to my slide that's behind me when I'm presenting at the end of the boardroom conference room table. And I would say for all the services that we've talked about here today, and again, you make reference to that slide that you've already hit on. Then I would say you're going to hire Arc Technology, my MSP, you're going to hire us for $16.48 an hour, which is $2,834 per month. You see where I got those numbers? See that? Now that's where they're coming in. That's for the services. Then I say, well, now the second part is the investment that needs to be made to get your network up to standards so we can perform the services that we've talked about. And then I'll go back to my network diagram that I have printed out and I show them, right? It's already been gone over in the presentation, but I go back to them and I bring it up and I let them know that there's, again, a significant investment that needs to be made to get this business, this company up to standards for the hardware, for the licensing, for the project management, the implementation of services. You're looking at a one-time investment of 20 grand. That's where that project price number comes into play. Now, once you tell them it's gonna be an investment of 20K, you pause for a couple seconds because sometimes they will just say, okay, let's do this. And then you get both. But pause for a couple seconds. Then what you're gonna say is, well, now look, if you're willing to authorize this agreement, bring us on as your technology partner, we're willing to make that $20,000 investment for you for the same $2,834 a month, $16.48 an hour. Then you close. So are we ready to move forward, or do you have any questions that I can answer for you? And then now we're going in objection handling, and again, that's a whole nother segment into training, but that's that mindset of where we are. So we had the numbers ready to go. So now if they say, well, who owns the equipment? You say, we do, because you finance it, it's yours. And they say, well, I just want to own it. They say, hey, not a problem. Then you just go ahead and cut this check up front for 20 grand. You can tell them the benefits of you owning it, right? You refresh every 3 years. It's an OpEx versus a CapEx, look the CFO in the eye. But if they end up wanting to own it, this is why you've already had your numbers ready to go. Then you say, okay, not a problem. You go back over to your whiteboard, you circle that 20K, and you say, you make the investment, cut the check up front for the 20 grand, and then that will reduce your services, your service rate from $28.34 a month to $2,278, which brings you down to below minimum wage at $13.25 an hour. Another way to think about it. And then you ask them what option works best for you. And then you go from there. All right, Nate, do we have any questions here before I toggle in here to break it down?
No, I think we've been kind of address them as they roll in here on the side, Nick. So I think we're good to go.
Okay.
Perhaps we'll have some additional ones kind of when we get to the end here.
So here's something I'd like to kind of share. So we have a pricing tool. So we went over the concept. So now it's important to just think about how we're building up these numbers. And so I have again, just follow me in concept here, but I'm gonna share my screen. Nate, let me know if you can see the, let me see here. So guys, this is our core platform. This is where, learning management for MSPs, documents, resources, our marketing collateral. I mean, you name it. If we use it as an MSP, it's yours. But for our purposes today, I want to share with you how we price out a managed services offering, keeping in mind the most important part is how much money are we making after we throw our labor, our service, our time against our standard offering. And the goal here is you want to be able to do it quickly as a salesperson, or have your salespeople do it quickly so they're not spending time, hours and hours and hours quoting. I want it to be done in 90 seconds and move on. Let's go bring on a new client. So I'm going to go into we have other applications and tools available, but let's go into the quote calculator, and I did a demo here for you guys as just an example. And then you could set this up. You need to have your own company settings in there. So as an example, you would set up your own burden rate. What is your burden rate for your MSP? What is your billable rate? Should you go on site, whatever, if you have a billable rate, know what your marketplace is. Those numbers would go into there. Once you set it, it does all the calculations for you, because it's important, again, to know our profitability. Here's your ROI for the HaaS part. If you're self-financing it, you can obviously change that. There's your term. You can change that as well. But this is your set for you. So I break our pricing into 4 little categories here. I have my monthly services. I have our monthly product, subscription-based product that me as an MSP, I'm having to cut checks every month, right? I'm having to pay for subscriptions. I have my one-time product, infrastructure, hardware, things that I'm just going to cut a check for one time. And then I have my labor to get things done. So let's just say now I'm meeting, we came back from our discovery and we've got an opportunity to quote out. So the first thing is, and your MSP may be different. If you don't have these numbers, then you can use ours. You can kind of, the goal is to get to a point where our labor loaded gross margin is 65%. That's best in class. That's what we want to strive for. So you need to understand how long it takes your team every month on average to support these different pieces of infrastructure. So as an example, let's just say I'm going my platinum offering, like I would for 98% of all my clients. And let's just say it's 15 employees, small business, 15 employees. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to support them. This is how much money I budget to, or how many hours it takes me. And again, this is all pre-programmed, so salespeople don't need to worry about it. You figure it out for your organization, or you can use ours. But it's important to understand how much time we're spending so we know how much profitability we can estimate at the end of the month. So it starts coming up with these numbers. This would be the remote only, make my plastic offering, but I'm going to do that. Let's say they have 5 mobile devices that are owned by the company we're going to manage. They have 1 server running, 1 virtual. They have 1 firewall. We're going to support 2 switches, 2 access, let's just say 2 access points. And they have 10 desktop phones that we're going to take over the management and support for, or we bring in our own phone system, depending on where they are. Now down here, When I bring on a client, just like an IT person would do, I need to deal with their technology vendors. Okay, when the internet's down, they will be calling me as an MSP, right? They're not going to call their ISP directly. So if you're not doing that already, do it, right? Because that's what an IT person would be doing. And if you are doing it but not charging for it, you need to account for that as well. So let's just say I'm going through here. I find out they have I don't know, 4 vendors. They have 2 what I would say tier 1s. Maybe they don't have any calls coming in. They don't really work with them all that often. Let's say they have a tier 2 or 1 tier 2, which may be like a line of business. Maybe occasionally I need to get on the phone. And then let's say they have a tier 3. Tier 3, let's just say it's a copier company. And, in my discovery, I'm talking to their office manager, who's currently their main point of contact for all the vendors they deal with. And I may say, hey, what about your copier company? And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm on the phone with them all the time. In fact, I'm calling this guy, our copier guy, I'm calling him after hours so much. I actually got a pretty good relationship with his wife. And now we do spin class every Thursday. Now I'm going to have to get a gym membership, right, to do a spin class, because now it's my monkey I need to handle. So I'm going to mark that down as a tier 3. And again, it's just how much time am I estimating I'm going to be spending in. And our MSP, we do audits every quarter, every year. We're looking at our tickets, how much time we're putting against certain service requests. So you start getting your numbers. But again, if you don't have them, that's okay. But you need to start somewhere you can leverage ours. So pretty straightforward. That's what I'm going to support. Now, how I'm going to do it, we've got a lot of different categories, but I'm going to expand them. I'm going to put everyone on Microsoft. I standardize on Microsoft. They're all going to be on Microsoft Premium. I'm going to take advantage of the features that are built into that. So I don't need anything else. Maybe I'm moving them to Azure, do an Intune. They're already included with Premium, so I'm not worried about it. But I'll add the 5 mobile devices. There you go. I'm going to have 17 agents. I need to monitor the 15 desktops, let's say the 2 servers. Got to put my firewall license in there. I'm definitely going to do their dark web monitoring. I'm going to do their employee education, the phish threat, the testing, and I'm going to add some web filtering in there as well. Do that per user. I'm not going to do any cloud for this one, but obviously I have the ability to. I'm putting my BDR in there. Okay, so what I standardize on, so I'm going to make sure that that's in place, adding continuity for this client. Then I'm going to go over now. I got to think about the infrastructure that I need. Let's just say of the 15 people, let's just say 10 of the devices need to be replaced. Some of them are still running on Windows 7. We need to get them out of there. So I'm just going to go ahead and place, let's say they need 5 of them that are working in the office. I'll do some desktops. And then let's just say I'm going to do laptops for the other 5. Again, whatever your standards are, these are your Lenovo laptops, your HP, just your standards are. And then in each case, I didn't fill, you have your cost that your procurement person or you guys set, you have your retail price if they're going to go ahead and cut that check for the project. So it brings up your pricing in there. Let's say the server's fine, don't need to replace that. The switches are fine, but I'm going to put in my UTM. Maybe it's whatever your standard's going to be on there. I'm going to put in my access points, and then I'm going to put in let's say I have the server. I'm going to run an HP server here for my BDR that I can run my licensing on, right? My software. So my networks now meet standards for what I need. Obviously, guys, you add in your products, your services. Yours may be a little bit longer, but just follow the concepts for what we have to, again, to get to that pricing strategy that I went over. Now we got to onboard them. So as part of this, we need to account for the time it's going to take us to onboard this new opportunity. So I got existing workstations with setup. I'm replacing 10 of them, but those other 5, I got to put a little bit of time in to get them set up, right? Put our agents on, load them. These other 10, the 5 workstations and the 5 laptops, I need to do a data migration. We need to make sure that everything's converted over. Let's say the new server, I'm just going to do a server, just set them up on our network, not needing to replace it. Yep, I'll put the access points in. Switches, or let's say the switch, I need to go ahead and, I don't know, maybe make some tweaks there. I'm going to go ahead and put a firewall in, set that up. I'll do, let's do some content filtering. I'm going to set that up for the client site. Got to put my BDR in there. Still, I'm going to do the 5 phones, get those 5 mobile devices that we're managing. I always add some time in for cable management, cleaning up the previous rat nest that we're walking into. And then, I don't know, I usually budget the amount of hours. You can see down here, 83. I'm going to go ahead and budget, I don't know, 15% is a rough number that I go with. So let's just say it's another 12 hours to get the project completed. So now if you guys look over here to the right, there's our numbers right here. Our monthly with Haas is $3,800 a month, which is $22 an hour. That reduced to ridiculous. That project price would be $32,510 because it's pulling all of the labor hours at my billable rate. It's going against the time, the cost and the sale price. So I got my minimum margins already marked up in there. So it gives me my project price. If they want to cut this check, remember, they want to own it, not a problem. They pay the $32K up front. That reduces their rate to the $28.98, which takes this number here, it divides it by your term that you put in here. So if you do a 60-month term, it'll change those numbers. But again, I'm doing 36 months, so it changed my numbers, which brings me down to the $28.98, $16.85 an hour. The most important number in this whole pricing scheme is this one right here. My labor loaded gross margin, it's 65%. So I don't let my salespeople go in here and mess with any of the numbers. My numbers are set. The amount of time that I budget for a workstation or a server or a firewall or whatever service I have, it doesn't change based on the economies of scale, right? It is what it is, and it's there. So I don't let my guys go in and change those numbers. However, if you want to modify the price, you can absolutely do that. So right now I'm at 65%. If my sales guy didn't do as good of a discovery as he needs to, or not, maybe it's a bid kind of deal, we need to get a little bit more aggressive. So let's just say he decides to take off, I don't know, $800 a month. Brings us down to 3,000. Maybe we want to get right below that 3,000 mark. I don't know. He's got a good feeling about it. But look at that. So brought the numbers down, but now my margin's at 54, almost 55%. So you need to ask yourself, am I okay with that? 55 to 65%. All right, not that crazy. But let's just say they wanted to do a little bit more. So now I'm at 51%. Maybe they take off 2,000. Or no, that would be a heck of a discount there. But you can do. There you go. Now, if I took off 2,000, that's 24% margin. You're losing money every month on this client. I wouldn't be below 50. 50 needs to be an exception in management approval. Okay, strive to be around that 65%. And on the same token, let's just say, we go into the end of the deal here, and you're like, you know what? I want to leave. I don't want to leave any money on the table, so I want to go ahead and just I want to add, I don't know, $150 a month to cover some what ifs. It adds it up there, brings it up to 66% margin. Now here's the thing: pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. So if you're seeing this number creep up, just be weary. On the other side of it is you're auditing your agreements. You guys should be doing that every quarter, auditing our agreements per client. Which ones are, how much money are we making? Are we in that realm of what we projected? And if you start seeing those numbers increase, 70, 75, 80% labor loaded gross margin, that is an immediate red flag that says that you need to be back in front of your clients. They're quiet, they're not putting in issues. So the last thing you want is all of a sudden renewal comes up and like, I'm not using you guys, I don't ever call you, right? So this is an account management function. Get in front of your clients, maybe go do some cleanup, show up on site. You got to put some time in, again, as part of the relationship with these clients. You can save your quotes, come back, you can modify it later. And then you can also adjust your ROI. So on the Haas part, if you want to have a lower number, maybe you put it at 16 months instead. See, you can still kind of show your profitability, but it lowers that number on there. So I know there's a lot to kind of decompress here, but if you can walk away with anything, is you need to understand how much money you're making. If you can't do that now, don't just rely on, I'm charging 150 a user a month or 200 or 300. Because if you're charging 150, but you're having to spend 160, it's a bad deal. So we have to be able to track this. We have to be able to understand how we're coming up with our pricing. And don't make it difficult for your salespeople. Have your engineers, you guys go through, you standardize your networks. The salespeople are very good at adding quantities. In less than 5 minutes, your deal's quoted out. They're already getting their agreements ready to go, but you're not having to worry about it. You can send it over your NOC manager to sign off for, your service manager, your projects team, whatever. But now your pricing and your quoting's done. We back into the there we go.
Nick, I gotta tell you, I was hanging on every word there. That was like intense, but I think it was amazing. Like I've always said before, sometimes we focus too much on telling our partners what we should be doing and not enough time telling them how to do it, right? So I really appreciate you taking time to walk through the kind of methodology that you guys implement in your own business, right?
Mm-hmm.
A couple of things that you hit on right there, and I heard a lot of use of the S word there, Nick, right? And to me, that's not what you might think is standardization, right? We kind of look at this from a concept. This isn't anything new, right? We go back to like kind of industrialized, revolutionary, like commerce concepts. Like standardization just drives down your cost of service delivery, right? If you have a ton of diversity, I mean, all these different products, they're all stuff that your team has to learn. From support, they're all different points of contact to manage, right? So to your point, I think you did a great job illustrating why it pays, even if sometimes you have to kind of step up on behalf of the partner just for your own selfish benefits to get them to standardize their network to meet your standards, to use the tools you're using, and really the benefits there, right?
Yeah,
just great
think
job.
about it. I mean, it helps our selfishly, helps our profitability, but the client's happier because we keep them up and running. If they have an issue, we know it's exactly these one of these 5 things, and we can train our people much quicker.
Yeah,
Makes it easy.
Another thing. Yeah, I was gonna say another thing you hit on there, which I thought was so important to kind of, and this kind of goes back to your commodity versus services type thing, right? A lot of times, either we or sometimes the customer gets so obsessive about what are the actual things, the boxes or the solutions specifically that you're providing them or putting into place, right? That doesn't matter because that's not really what you're selling. You're really selling an outcome, right? The outcome essentially is business continuity, right? They want their network to operate, their business to be able to operate. Ideally, and this is a blessing in disguise, or maybe the opposite, depending how you look at it, right? If you're doing an amazing job, they probably don't even know anything's happening, right? Like that.
Oh, yeah.
That's the biggest compliment, right? And then we run into like the flip side of that of how do we then portray value, right? But yeah, it's amazing, like just the concept of a lot of people get so hung up on like what laptops or what server or whatever, but really it's about what is the outcome, right?
Exactly. And most people here at some point have had cable or direct TV. I promise you, you did not know what was in that black box in your living room. You didn't care.
Yeah.
You just wanted to know, when I turn my TV on, I hit this button, I've got 485 channels to choose from. That's it.
Yep. How we got to the 485 channels doesn't matter, right? Yeah, that's great. Another thing I wanted to point out, right, just around infrastructure as a topic, and I kind of started off with this, right? If you're only capitalizing on a small amount of your customers' IT spend, you're missing out, right? And what we see there is if you're not willing to go the entire 100 yards for them, one of your competitors is, right? From an end user standpoint, they don't want to necessarily split up their spend between, I call provider A to support my devices, my user devices, and provider B to support my network, right? So they really want to consolidate, and they want to have, here again, a single phone number to call regardless of what the problem is, right? One thing I will say sometimes is getting to the point to be able to deliver those services can seem a little daunting, right? And D&H, just throw this out here, we have both the tools to help you insource the service delivery requirements, right? And another popular option is, depending what your internal service delivery footprint looks like, is we also have partnerships in place that partner with you, can augment your in-house capabilities to kind of help maybe plug some of those gaps, right? And here again, like a monthly per user or per device price model, right? So either direction, whichever is best for your individual business and kind of the course you want to take with your partners, certainly we're here to help. So last and not least here, Nick, I wanted to point out, you're going to be visiting us in Harrisburg not too long from now, right?
Yeah. Hey, real quick, Nate, before for anybody on here, guys, is kind of a gift that, that pricing calculator, I have it available to you guys. Just email membership@chartec.net. It'll be yours 30 days. Play with it, put your products in there, you customize it yourself. But hopefully that may help you guys streamline and kind of get that infrastructure as a service. So just email us. It's on behalf of D&H.
Yeah, for sure. And then Nick, here again, any of you that really enjoyed Nick's content, and I always do. Nick, every time I talk to you, whether it's just on a Teams call or when we do one of these together, I learn something new, man. So that's incredible. If so, any of you want to kind of do the full CharTec experience, I think they have some dates coming up here, right, Nick? And those are in Bakersfield, correct?
Yeah, we do. So we have, and I know you guys are limited, Nate, but I'll be coming out to D&H HQ.
Yep.
Phenomenal facility. I'm looking forward to hitting the arcade. I got to beat my best score at Golden Tee, so I'll be ready for that. But it'll be a full day of sales training, walking through the sales process, incorporating what you've learned today, but starting up at that marketing message, working all the way down. And then we do have we do a sales lab. So it's a week-long course. I limit to 8 people that come out, and you will be living and breathing a sales process, not watching somebody do it, but you'll have to do it yourself. So it's your salespeople, yourself. It's that quickest way to expedite sales success versus thinking about it and burning leads along the way. I have 2 dates coming up. I believe I have 2 seats left for July, and I have 1 seat left for August. So if you guys are at all interested, membership at chartec.net, and see if it may be a fit for you guys as well.
Yeah, and for sure, and just to chime in there, the August 9th event at our corporate HQ in Harrisburg also is fairly limited for number of attendees. And I think we're almost at wait list, but certainly if this is something you guys are interested in, we have cancellations, or at some point we might be able to increase the actual number of attendees. So if that's any of you would be interested in attending and coming out, making it out to Harrisburg and spending a couple days with me and Nick and some of my team talking about how to build out your managed services practice, drop us a line here. That is our team alias, and we'll be happy to either see if we can get you fit in, or minimally make sure that you guys are kind of teed up on a list if we have cancellations, or we can find some other way to kind of get you out to Harrisburg. All right. Well, I think we are about out of time here. So here again, Nick, thank you so much for joining us today. I can't thank you enough for coming on and kind of providing, here again, this very valuable content to our partners. And then here again, for all of you that joined us today, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. Really, our partners at D&H, you guys are our most valuable resource. So the fact that you're all willing to kind of join us today and invest that time and bettering your business and your business acumen, we really appreciate it. And again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to email me or Nick at any point. So thank you guys so much.
All right, thank you guys, appreciate it.